Devlin, Untamed.
Welcome to the podcast, people. Martin Devlin, Lachlan War. The show is called iOS, It's Only Sport. It's also the only true independent daily radio sports program in this country. 1 till 4 on the platform every afternoon, or if you can't join us live, well, this is the next best thing, the highlights package thereof. Some snippets of the interviews, bit of chat, a little bit of ranting, all in a 45 minutes highlights package, which hopefully encompasses most of the things that you want to know about in the big, wide, wonderful world of sport today. Afghanistan, man, you got to celebrate. This is one of the year's best sporting stories. The little cricket engine that could. Simon Doull was calling that game in the West Indies yesterday. He joined us today. Origin State of O. Number 2 tonight. Can the Blues square the series? Are we going to get 13 on 13 for 80 minutes? I mean, that would be good for a start, wouldn't it? Because, I mean, after the first, I mean, who could, the Euros. Another couple of countries through, and another England performance that makes most of their supporters just spew, throwing empty cups at the coach, booing the team off the field, even though they finished top of the group and they qualified. Ice hockey, the Stanley Cup was wrapped up yesterday, and we went to Florida today just to find out how big a deal this is in the state of Florida. I mean, they've got a couple of, maybe it might be 3, but they've got at least a couple of NFL teams. They've got a couple of baseball teams there. They've got the Miami Heat basketball. They've got Messi Mania going on. So can they squeeze in the Stanley Cup? Regular guests every Wednesday, Miles Davis, blah, blah, and the BTE, the Brendan Telfer Experience. We begin the show the same way every day. I say tablets in hand, gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. Hip, hip, hooray. Come on down, Afghanistan. It's your time to shine. Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
It's the greatest story in sport. The underdog, the upset, the overachiever. The little guy gets up and KOs the big guy against all the odds. Celebrate Afghanistan, folks. This is one of the best sports stories that we'll see all year. The Ghanies are in the T20 World Cup semi-final. They played 7 games at this tournament, beating in the group stage Uganda, us, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea. They lost to the West Indies. Then the Super 8s, they lost to India, they beat the Aussies, and yesterday afternoon beat Bangladesh to make the Final Four. Now on to South Africa tomorrow, where again, they are rank outsiders. Cinderella is still at the ball, and who outside of those SAFA cricket fans doesn't want this giant-killing run to continue? This is like Argentina making the Rugby World Cup semi-finals against the odds in 2007, but it's bigger than that. This is like Samoa making the Rugby League World Cup final, but I think it's bigger than that. Greece winning the Euro Championships in 2004. South Korea maybe making the FIFA World Cup semi-finals in 2002. These countries are not meant to make it this far, but occasionally, ever so occasionally, they do. And unless you're an Aussie cricket fan, you would have loved that result yesterday. Now, here's the kicker. Have a listen to this piece of audio from Simon Doull. It's about 30 seconds or so. The Afghanis are old school. They practice. Then they practice. They prepare thoroughly for every match. Not like our Black Caps. Oh, no, we've got a holiday with the families. We can't be asked turning up on time. Oh, we've got another tournament to play rather than represent our country.
They've trained harder than any other team in the competition. They've trained most of their off days. They only had 1 day off training, even when they've travelled, and that was the day before the game against Bangladesh last night. That was purely because they'd already played a game against Australia at the ground. They trained the night before at the ground. And one thing Rashid Khan said to me after the game was, he said, we wanted to come down and train at the ground because we felt, every ground has its own little variances. And we found the outfield quite sticky, as in the ball would stop and hold. And if you go back to that game, you think about Ashton Agar getting beaten, Cameron Green getting beaten on 2 or 3 occasions. The Aussie fielding just wasn't up to scratch. They'd been down the night before and trained for 2.5 hours on that ground just because they hadn't been there before.
So viva Afghanistan. Semi-final tomorrow, as I said, versus the Saffers. And here's hoping that the ride continues. A real-life cricket fairy tale. Cinderella is going to the ball, only this time the glass slipper is Rashid's nasty flipper.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
5050 on the text. One's already come in from Paul. He says, Martin, how were we allowed to watch the Afghanistan cricket game? I'm going to love this, Lachlan. I thought there was a Taliban. Nice.
That's great. That's a great joke.
That's a great dad joke. That's brilliant, mate. Yeah, go on.
Oh, thank you, Paul. I love that.
That is almost the equivalent of the meth fin, which we haven't heard, thank God, for at least a couple of weeks now.
Yeah, nothing quite tops meth.
Dooley and then Miles Davis after England's pathetic 0-0 draw performance against Slovenia today. What do we got in the news headlines?
Oh, actually, I was going to start with more storylines attached to the All Blacks squad being named, but I'll actually start off with the Euros because, I mean, we've done a fair bit on the All Blacks. We don't really need to do a huge amount, but it won't be leading this bulletin. I'll start off with the Euros. England 0, Slovenia 0. Another game where if you're a fan or just, if you're a fan of England, a football fan, or just a bystander watching this, you would have sat there and thought, people love this. Is considered the most beautiful game in the world. This is a sport that the whole world cries over.
They know how to turn it ugly. No, he's damn good, Gareth Southgate. That's that.
When they said that Cole Palmer hadn't played at all during the tournament and his first minutes were coming off the bench in this game in the 70th minute, I just thought, okay, you got one of the most talented young attacking players in world football who was a standout in the Premier League for Chelsea, and you haven't played him once yet? But don't worry, Trent Alexander-Arnold came on the field. Don't worry, Kieran Trippier, a right-footed man, played left back. Anyway, England and Slovenia drawing 0-0. Denmark and Serbia 0-0. In terms of the group and how it looks, England finished top with 5 points, a win and 2 draws. They scored 2 goals across the 3 games. Look, at the end of the day, it's enough. Slovenia finishing 3rd, Serbia 4th, Denmark in 2nd. So Denmark and Serbia tied, both on points. They drew all 3 of their games. They each scored twice, each conceded twice, but according to the table, Denmark are ahead. That could be down to yellow cards. I haven't quite investigated that yet. Excuse me. Serbia coming 4th. Meanwhile, in Group D, Austria beating the Netherlands 3-2, and that victory meaning that Austria topped the group because France drew with Poland. So Austria finished 1st on 6 points, 2 wins out of 3. France with a win and 2 draws. They're in 2nd, the Netherlands 3rd, but 4 points should be enough, probably already is enough for the Netherlands to get through to the knockout phase. Of course, if you're one of the 4 best ranked 3rd teams, you go through to the knockout phase, even if you have finished 3rd. At the Euros tomorrow, brilliant slate of games, and the best ones are probably on at 4 a.m. So if you're an early riser, congrats. If you're not, So Slovakia, Romania at 4 a.m. as well as Ukraine, Belgium. The interesting thing about these 2 games is that all of those teams are tied on points, aren't they? It's 3 points apiece. Everyone's won 1, everyone's lost 1. Georgia, Portugal, Czechia, Turkey on at 7 a.m. tomorrow. All right, an interesting story. I'll stick with football. An interesting story coming out of the Northern Hemisphere. Arsenal legend and former French striker, Thierry Henry, is one of the names being considered to succeed Rob Page as the Welsh football manager.
How weird.
Really weird.
How weird is that? Has he ever managed before, Thierry Henry?
Yeah. I have a feeling he had like an under-21s team or like a junior side or like Monaco junior side maybe. I have a feeling. I could be wrong though. All Blacks forwards coach Jason Ryan has explained the factors that tipped the balance in favour of versatility. The loose forward was picked in the squad seemingly ahead of Hoskins Tutu. They were 2 stars. Wallace Satiti more of a breakout star in Super Rugby this year. We've been tracking both of them. It's really important we have both sides of the ball effort. That's something Razor really wanted from his loose forwards. That's different in the selecting model this year, where we all get a little say in specialist areas, which is quite unique. It's really important we have both sides of the ball effort. I think he means defensively and offensively. I'm assuming that's what he means. Former All Black Shane Philpott has passed away at the age of 58. He's understood to have passed away in Christchurch following a medical event. NZ Rugby has confirmed the news of his passing. Just weeks after becoming the first undisputed heavyweight boxing champion in nearly 25 years, Alexander Usyk has given up one of his belts. He beat Tyson Fury on a split decision on the 18th of May, adding the BC title to his WBA, WBO and IBF. It's the IBF belt that he has given up. A proposed surf park in Auckland is a step closer to reality, with the Ministry of Environment granting the project resource consent. That's quite cool, a surf park in Auckland. Here's a bit of a distressing story, just a warning. A Dutch beach volleyball player who raped a 12-year-old British girl has qualified for next month's Paris Olympics, despite being told by a judge that his hopes of representing the Netherlands was a shattered dream. Well, he's been selected and is going to the Olympics. Bit of a troubling story. State of Origin Game 2 is on tonight. Queensland, New South Wales down there in Melbourne. Kick-off just after 10 p.m. And apart from that, not a huge a huge amount else going on in the world of sport. The All Whites have a friendly against the USA in September. That's kind of cool. USA aren't really a big powerhouse in world football, though. And for something that's a bit of a strange story, Sean Johnson has taken to social media to hit back at the haters. Go to his Instagram and have a look at this post. He's pretty much saying, these comments don't affect me. He's taken screenshots of people's comments on his social media post, both positive and negative comments, and he's put on a caption on this saying, I'm not affected by these, but hey, there's someone who might be, so, you shouldn't do this, you social media trolls. I don't know. I think if you're posting that, Sean, I think it shows that you do kind of care a little bit.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
It's got to be one of the most heartwarming sports stories of the year. How can you not love what Afghanistan are doing at the T20 Cricket World Cup? And if you're not a South African fan, well, there's only one team to support in that semi-final tomorrow. And I don't know about you, but I would love this team to go through and win the whole goddamn thing. Why not? This is what sport is about. It's about the underdog, the little guy, the Cinderella story, all of that kind of thing. Simon Doull was there yesterday calling the game. I don't know whether I'm just over-exaggerating this, because that would be unlike me as a person, wouldn't it? But I think this is this is one of the greatest sports stories we're going to see all year, if not this decade even. I'm in love with Afghanistan and what they are doing here.
Yeah, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And you think where they've come in a short space of time, and to be able to make a World Cup semi-final. I mean, when did I think I sort of compare them a little bit with Bangladesh. If you think about Bangladesh, they got their test status either 2000 or just after the year 2000. So in 24 years, they really haven't got a huge amount better. They're able to win at home, but they play on surfaces that really suit them, and that's okay. New Zealand have lost there, I get all that. But Afghanistan's very short time at the top level of cricket has seen them produce some incredible performances for a country that cannot play at home ever. They play their home games in either the UAE or in India now. I think New Zealand playing a test match just outside of Delhi later in the year against them. It is just a phenomenal story. The hardships that some of these guys have come from and through, the place they now take in some of the T20 leagues around the world, the quality of cricket they play. It is just a phenomenal story, and I'm with you. I'm not sure we'll see many better stories in any sport, male or female, throughout the year.
How well received is it in the West Indies? Because we all love the underdog, we all love the darling, we all love the overachiever. At the same time, the West Indies have been knocked out. At the same time, Australia, the powerhouse, they aren't there anymore. And I suppose if you're looking at, from the organisers' perspective, they're going, well, hang on a second, those are the box office teams. So how's it being received?
I think from a television point of view, as long as India is still in its box office anyway, and that's where 90% of the audience is coming from. The reason that India are playing all their games at 10:30 a.m. is purely and simply for the Indian audience, the Indian television time, and that's part of the deal with with the amount of money they put into the World Game now. So it's been received very well. I mean, they've had great support. Every ground they've been to, they've had great support. They, all of the people around the ground, whether it be from the ground staff, they're so respectful to them, to the people that cook the meals, all that sort of stuff. They absolutely love this Afghanistan side. And, what they've done, the journey they've come on, I think they've trained, Marty, I genuinely say this, they've trained harder than any other team in the competition. They've trained most of their off days. They only had one day off training, even when they've travelled, and that was the day before the game against Bangladesh last night. That was purely because they'd already played a game against Australia at the ground. They trained the night before at the ground. And one thing Rashid Khan said to me after the game was, he said, we wanted to come down and train at the ground because we felt, every ground has its own little variances. And we found the outfield quite sticky, as in the ball would stop and hold. And if you go back to that game, you think about Ashton Agar getting beaten, Cameron Green getting beaten on 2 or 3 occasions. The Aussie fielding just wasn't up to scratch. They'd been down the night before and trained for 2.5 hours on that ground just because they hadn't been there before. So the little things that they are just leaving no stone unturned just shows you the level of professionalism that they have. And they've been incredibly well received. Look, West Indies being out of the tournament has been a bit of a blow from a local fan's point of view. I get that. But, they had every chance and they just weren't up to the mark.
Hang on a second. Somebody's just walked into the room. Hey, Scott Wienik, come over here and listen to this. These guys turned up and practiced at the ground and on the pitch that they were playing on so that they could actually get comfortable with it. What a weird concept. What a bizarre thing to do. Turning up and actually practice. Good Lord. Honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I'm taking the piddle here, but at the same time, I mean, that's what wins you these games. That's the attitude you've got to take. You can never take anything for granted. That's what I love about this team, mate. I mean, they just seem, take away the fairy tale side of it. I'm going through their results, mate. Look, they beat Uganda, comfy. They beat New Zealand, comfy. They beat PNG, comfy. They lost to the West Indies by 104 runs. They lost to India by 47 runs. So, those are two games to, really good measuring sticks. Then they beat Aussie by 21 runs. Then they beat the Bangers yesterday. So just looking at those results, are they legitimate? Are they worthy of a place in the semi-final?
The cricket they've played, absolutely. I think conditions have suited. I'll give them that. But, you have to perform on the day on the pitch that is provided. And they have, in all but those two games, they have been the better side. You get them on a very flat pitch, on a very good batting surface. They're probably still a little bit behind the top sides. If they play Australia, India, England on a really, really good pitch, or like they did the West Indies on a really, really good pitch, their batting is probably not quite up to it, but they know how to graft and fight on fairly tough surfaces. And if they put a score on the board, batting first, their bowling attack can put you under pressure. The one thing they have really done in the last 2 or 3 years, the rise of Fazal Farooqi and Naveen, and the fact that they're playing a lot of T20 franchise tournaments around the world, it's turned them into high quality opening bowlers. They've added Omar Zai, who's got a few skills as well as a seam bowler. So they've now got a seam bowling attack that matches their spin bowling unit, and that's the one area of real improvement. They could do with more runs from everyone else except for Ibrahim and Ramanullah Gurbaz at the top of the order, but they just know how to fight. They know how to scrap enough to win a game, and that was a game that looked like it was getting away from them completely last night, and in the end they managed to pull out a win.
That game last night, and we're here in the afternoon, and we're watching it, and it just ebbed and flowed and swung. And Simon, I don't know whether you agree with me. I didn't think they had enough runs on the board. I mean, when you're setting Bangladesh 12.1 overs to get it, I mean that you would seem. I mean, because it's only 100 and change, wasn't it? And then the rain comes, and then the rain comes, and then the rain comes, and in the end, what do they need? 9 off 8 or something, and they didn't have enough wickets left. God, it was just torturous, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, look, it was a great game to call it. And sometimes, Marty, for us, from a calling point of view, the low-scoring thriller is a better game to call than watching 4s and 6s pelted everywhere around the ground. And it brings a lot of components into play. Brings real batsmanship into play. And to be fair, that's where New Zealand fell down on low-scoring pitches. Their batsmanship just wasn't quite up to it. And if they can put any score, I said about 10 overs into the game when they were struggling, I said to a couple of the guys in the green room, I said, 120 on this pitch might be really tough, because you knew Bangladesh were going to try and do it in that 12.1, 12.2 overs. So they were a chance of losing early wickets. And then all of a sudden, the run rate starts to sort of creep up a little bit, and they can find themselves under pressure. It's exactly what happened. But, they had a few things, a couple of things go their way, and Bangladesh are just not used to winning. And that's something that, they've struggled with a lot at ICC events. They've struggled to win against any side that is ranked above them.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. All Blacks gathering for the first time today. It was outside of Wellington, Upper Hutt, what used to be the old CIT when I was growing up there. It's now the Institute of Sport. The Hurricanes train there, and the Phoenix train there, and the All Blacks are gathering there, and the newbies are there. A couple of quotes from Justin Marshall about all of this when we spoke to Justin yesterday. First is being named as an All Black, and I still think it's one of the best days in New Zealand sport every year when the newbies get named.
When you're being touted as being in the mix, you're never ever really taking that for granted, and you certainly know that if you're playing good rugby, then hopefully that you are in the conversation, but you never ever really realise that name will be read out. I think it's always one of those ones that you can never be assured of. You can never know what the coaches are thinking, and equally, like that jersey and being in that environment is something that I guess you dream of, but it's really, really hard to sort of to taper it. It's a real surreal feeling being named for the first time, and that huge sense of being, at the very, very peak of your powers, and knowing that you're hopefully going to get an opportunity to play for your country in the All Black shirt is, it's just the greatest feeling that you can have. It doesn't matter whether you are 19, 20 years old, like a John Alomu who first got named, or you're like a Frank Bunce and you're in your sort of mid to late 20s. Makes no difference, the age. It's all about that incredible privilege and that honour of walking into a very rare, esteemed club and walking in those footsteps. You just won't ever forget.
Second quote from Justin Marshall is about Scott Barrett as captain of the All Blacks. And I must admit, over the last couple of days, I've had some scribes I've read talking about how pundits in the mainstream media, how pundits are upset because pundits wanted Adi Savea as the All Black captain. Well, pundits don't select the All Black captain. Scott Robertson does. He's had a hell of a lot of time to think about this. About 18 months, as a matter of fact. And there's a damn good reason he selected that guy as captain, because he wants him as captain. And I think it's a bit insulting in the first 24 hours to start throwing out clickbait articles like this. Celebrate the fact that this guy has just been given the biggest prize in New Zealand sport.
His name would, yes, absolutely be first name on the team sheet each week. When he's fit and available, he's quite clearly our best lock, and he just works hard all day, which is what you want. He's obviously been a captain and a player under Scott Robertson, so you'll know him well and he trusts him. And he knows, obviously, the environment he wants to create and the culture he wants to create for the All Blacks, that Scott Barrett will support him in that. That's really key. Like, you've got to have your coach and your captain working really, really tight together for the common good of the team.
Devlin. The platform.
Blah, 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 blah. Miles Davis, every single Wednesday on the program. Now, there's a couple of hot buttons with Miles. One of them is Gareth Southgate. You can just mention the two words, Gareth and Southgate, and then you can put your phone down. You can go out, go to the toilet, make a cup of tea. You can go and check whether or not you left the lights on in the car. Come back, mention David Moyes. You can go out, take the car for a warrant. He'll just still be talking, raving, shouting, screaming, telling you every theory in the world how he hates Gareth Southgate, even though the team has qualified first in their group and are through to the round of 16. Here's Miles. MD squared it is. Sporting's MD squared, Miles Davis, Martin Devlin squared. You should be happy that you've qualified top of the group of bored to death, and now you're into the round of 16.
Right, so we can be bored to death again.
Yes.
Like, seriously?
Seriously.
If there was a footballing god, he would have put us out of our misery by now.
Look, I was just saying, okay, I'm going to drop it. No, I'll drop two words in here, and I've been saying to people, and it's the oldest joke there is. I say Gareth Southgate, I can go and take the car for a warrant and get back in time, and you wouldn't have taken a bloody breath. So here we go, Gareth Southgate.
Following on from Sam Allardyce and David Moyes, I seem to have a relationship with them. The thing that really got me is a couple of things, but one was him going on about tournament football and pundits going, this is tournament football. Well, how come the likes of the Portuguese and the Spanish are playing tournament, but they're playing attractive football? Does it mean that you go out and you're unable to score against Denmark and Slovenia, for Christ's sake, hardly creating a chance? Is that what it's all about? How are you suddenly expected to change tactics, change personnel, put your foot on the accelerator when you've been playing the same pedestrian, fearful bollocks for the last 3 or 4 years? Honestly, it's driving me insane. It was like with Moyes at West Ham. Then we got this Southgate of England. There was one guy. Do you remember when we lost 4-0 at home to Hungary? And then, I don't know if I sent it to you. This Charlton fan is there in England.
That's right. That's what he was going. That was their rant. I come along to this because my life's shite. That's it.
Cheer myself up. He said, I've been supporting Charlton all season. It's been rubbish. And now I come here and I get this load of, and that's exactly what it's like. It's absolutely, it's almost like you couldn't tell the difference between the last 3 games, probably, apart from the fact that England scavenged a couple of goals in the first game. Really, really poor. And I just you know, there's part of me, I was egging Slovenia on the score.
No.
Yeah, seriously. It's like, you know, come on, you need a kick at the backside, and they're going to go on about, oh, they're tired, and other players have played a hell of a lot more games than most of them. Why is he taking no, you know, left back apart from the only left back he's taken, Luke Shaw, has been injured.
No,
played hardly any football.
No.
Hasn't played for the first 3 games. So you bung a load. I mean, one stage you had 3 right backs on the field. What on earth is that all about?
Well, hang on a second. What do you want? It's a world tournament. Do you want results? Do you want results? Do you want results?
No, I want to win, but I want to be entertained. No, mate, you don't understand.
I don't understand.
You know, if you wanted results, you wouldn't support England and you wouldn't support West Ham. All right? If you wanted to win things, you want entertainment. You want people to attack. You want the intent to be there. You've got as good if any other manager, I reckon, to that tournament, including the Slovenian one, would get that squad of attacking players that England have got and be knocking the ball about like no business. You know, how can Slovenia play? Austria, magnificent. Against a Dutch. I mean,
with Ralph Rangnick, the second division German coach who conned his way into the Man United job saying he was father of the press. I know, mate, he was sizzling sausages outside the warehouse, mate. That's what he was doing. He wasn't coaching football. That guy managed to beat the Dutch and get through with 3 goals. You've scored 2 goals in 3 games, mate.
I know, and they looked good. They were worthy of it as well. But they showed intent. They showed when they got the ball, they moved it forward. They got, none of these footballers here are rubbish, apart from maybe a few of the England ones. So if you put the right approach onto it, you've got opportunities. Everyone's able to score in, apart from England. Press them, get the ball forward in a timely manner, and don't be afraid. Kieran Trippier, 98% of his passes go backwards. Now, I know he's on the wrong side of the pitch, but surely you can still know how to pass the ball in a forward direction.
So what we're doing is we're getting into this. I'm going to quote you, from the great All Black philosopher Sir Graham Henry, right, who after the 2007 World Cup calamity said, oh, look, we don't want to win a World Cup like that. We don't want to play like those South Africans and those English. Well, 8-7 against France when we were outplayed in 2011 got him a knighthood. He doesn't care. Surely, ultimately, pragmatism is going to rule. Miles, if your team wins this, are you going to be still talking like this?
Yeah, very much so, mate. I don't want to go there boring. You know, you can say that we don't want to win like that. We don't want to win like that. You want to play an expansive game. And as far as the All Blacks go, mate, up until 1994, you spent 100 years grinding the death out of the opposition with your forwards.
Yes, we did.
And it was only when you suddenly realised you couldn't do it anymore against Australia, you thought, tell you what, let's spin it out. Let's chuck it wide and fling it with gay abandon and see what happens.
All right, time to play Prince or Ponce. Who's your Prince?
I'm going to say, and a bit of a tangential one or an off-the-wall one. I'm going to go for Reece Walsh because to come back after basically getting killed, he was probably dead on the pitch, and then come back and front up again. I think is magnificent. And I was listening to a mate of mine today who was saying he wouldn't mind him getting maybe a sprained ankle, so he's not fit for the Broncos against the Warriors this weekend. But I think it's phenomenal. I just hope that he hasn't come back too early. But the guy's not the biggest in the world, and that was a brutal hit that probably would have put a lot of people out of the game for life. So big ups to him. He's my Prince for this week.
All right, mine is Gareth Southgate, mate. He managed you through the group of bored to death, and now you're in the round of 16, and I just hope that he manages to shut you and all the whinging pommies up, and that he actually he's going to hang up. Who's your Ponce?
Well, it was going to be a couple of other people, but you for a start. but that's nothing new. That's nothing new.
No.
I'm going to go for the duo of Southgate and Kane. You know, the impervious. I can't understand why people are booing us off. No one else does that. Well, no one else is as boring as you. And Harry, you're pretty boring anyway. I have no idea why you're in England captain. You're the most uninspiring individual in the world. Stick to scoring goals. Stick to the opposition half, preferably nearer their penalty area, and accept criticism when you've played like a pile of pony and trap.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
The Tight Five.
5 separate sporting topics, roughly a minute or so on each. And when this happens, reminds us to go quickly on to the next topic. Afghanistan. The story just gets better and better at the T20 World Cup. Are England the most boring team at the Euros, or do you think the criticism is a bit harsh considering that they are achieving? Andrew Webster leaves the door open for selections. Is this the most diplomatic Warriors team selection announcement that you have ever heard? There's about 130 names named yesterday, Lachlan. I've thought long and hard overnight about the Hoskins Satutu Instagram post. I want to talk about that. Origin tonight. And in the Hoskins Satutu department also, Sean Johnson reacting on his Instagram, calling the trolls savage, things like that. We can talk about that. But we started the show talking about Afghanistan with Doull. And we spoke about it with Miles as well. I'd love your thoughts on this, people. 5050 on the text. Whether you like T20 cricket, whether you're following the tournament or not. But this is what sport's meant to do, isn't it? It's meant to throw up the fairy tale. That's, it's as much as anything, I love that. I love the unpredictability of live sport. Everything else is so contrived these days, and that's what frustrates the hell out of me, that the whole PR schmuck train has just infiltrated sports so much, and 90% of everything you read, it's just rubbish and rot and written by the marketing department. Afghanistan weren't meant to get through. Let's just make that loud. Okay, establish that early on this. They weren't meant to get through. We were meant to get through. And in our group were also the West Indies, and they were the home side. So Afghanistan on paper was supposedly...
Well, you can't say we're meant to get through because we didn't. What do you mean we were meant to go through?
I'm damn sure that every single one of those Black Caps cricketers and every single one who works at New Zealand cricket thought we were going through.
Well, there's your issue.
That's why they turned up and they didn't prepare properly and they didn't practice properly.
If you're thinking, yeah, we should get through, there's your problem. No, don't think we should get through, win your games, and then get through.
Earn the right to get through.
Yeah.
Simon Doull, I'm going to replay that quote for you later on in the show. That is the most significant thing I've heard so far about this tournament from a New Zealand cricket's perspective. That the night before they played Bangladesh in the most crucial match in their country's cricket history, Lachlan, they went down to the ground and they practiced and played at night because they wanted to see how the conditions were when they were going to be batting and bowling in them. Now, they won and they're through. What does it tell you? It makes me even more wild about the fact that our guys can't be asked turning up, that they play for their country when they want to, that they'd rather go on holiday between tournaments than actually get there in time and actually properly prepare for a tournament. We deserve what we got, and Afghanistan deserve what they got, yeah?
Yeah. Well, what's the thing? You're studying, you're playing sports, I don't know, you're having a bit of fun on a skateboard, or you're doing the Rubik's Cube, I don't know. What do your parents tell you when you're young?
Well, they tell you to practice, to study.
Yeah, practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
Your parents, your coaches.
Everybody.
Elders in your life when you're young and you're trying to perfect something, whatever it is.
You have to work hard for it.
Yeah, exactly. Practice makes perfect. Put in the work.
And this is what we've done. We have created a bunch of individuals that live resort star lifestyles, and that's where the headspaces are at.
People who've just gotten a little bit too comfortable.
Well, they have. That's all. It's clear and obvious, isn't it?
And, if you're a certain team, like if you're the Australian cricketers, to an extent, the All Blacks, not really anymore. There's other,
maybe Man City.
Man City. Maybe, I was going to say maybe the Penrith Panthers or Melbourne, but not even them because they play in such a tight, tough competition. PSG maybe, Bayern Munich maybe, but maybe not.
Well, maybe you think at that stage, you think, okay, we can get away with being 80%.
Well, but you can get away with maybe not putting in, as many hours as, say, a team who is fighting for relegation or fighting off relegation in a European football competition. Then I get it, because often you're the best, or you peak at these tournaments. Australian cricketers tend to peak at these tournaments, didn't this time around. But look, and whatever it is you're doing, practice makes perfect. You've got to work on your craft,
Afghanistan have embarrassed us every single aspect of what they have achieved at this tournament. England, the most boring team at the Euros, is it? Look, they might be vanilla and they don't score goals and they don't really attack and they've got brilliant players and they're terrible to watch. But they're getting results. Is that more important? Do you agree with Miles that it's about entertainment, or is it about results at the end of the day at a tournament like this? Because we always say this, don't we? No one remembers that a really poor French side, which had been dicked by us, lost to Tonga, almost captured the World Cup, and in 2011 it was 8-7 and a dodgy penalty call went our way right at the end. Hands off Black 7, remember? He was shouting, the referee, Joubert, hands off Black 7. There's only one Black 7 on there, and that was our guy. The penalty went our way. That's how close it was. But no one cares because we won. Do you think the England fans would feel like that if they finally won a
If they
tournament?
won,
I think
if they won, absolutely.
I think they would.
This is the thing. Miles is really. I'm not going to sit here and say that he doesn't know what he's talking about. Of course, he's followed sports and football in particular for so much longer than I've been alive. For goodness sakes, I'm not going to act like I know more than him. I have a different opinion of the whole thing. If my team's winning, I don't care. If we're getting results, I don't care. I would rather be the South African rugby team winning knockout matches by 1 point, playing a really unattractive style of rugby, almost seemingly trying to throw the game away in the final against the All Blacks last year at the World Cup. But we won.
They won.
That's all that history cares about. 20, 30 times when you look back at the Wikipedia page that you can access in your brain and project from your eyes in 20, 30 years' time, all it's going to say is the Springboks won the World Cup.
They won.
All it's going to say is so-and-so won this and won that. It doesn't say if they were boring or whatnot. Now, the problem with England is they don't win tournaments. So, and they have an embarrassment of riches in terms of attacking young talent, really exciting talent. Like Jude Bellingham's just been
This is a classic
non-factor,
case, mate, of a coach who just has so inhibiting his players. We can look at many coaches that seem to bring the best out of their players. Like I think Billy Slater does that. I look at that Origin side and I reckon that Queensland side looks average to me on paper compared to the names in the New South Wales side. But whatever Billy Slater, whatever Mel Meninga, whatever these guys managed to do to these guys, they've turned guys that have been club players into superstars playing for that team.
I disagree with that apart from a couple of years. But
okay,
I know what you mean.
Okay,
yeah.
But Gareth Southgate manages to turn some of the best young footballers in Europe into fraidy cats.
Well, what about Greece in 2004?
No, but they won playing terrible football.
Yeah. And no one knew who any of them were.
No, or still do.
And they beat a Portuguese side of the final who had Figo and a young Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Like, all that really matters is that you
this
win.
with Miles after the tournament. It depends on how they go.
You think they could win?
I think that they'll get to the quarters or the semis and then they'll do what they normally do. They'll lose in a penalty shootout. Andrew Webster has left the door open for selections. He says, I thought it was the most diplomatic team naming I've seen in sport ever.
He didn't change anything.
He hasn't changed anything. He hasn't heaped criticism on anyone. He's just walked along the tightrope, hasn't he, without putting a single toe out of place here. So there's two ways of looking at this. The players are getting slagged. He already knows that. If he goes public and does it really add anything to the experience? Is it going to help in any way? No. At the same time, I kind of think all of us were looking, and this is it. We just look. We don't do because he does. And we look at what he does. But what I was expecting from him is definitive. And I haven't seen that. Maybe when he announces the 13 that run on in the bench on the weekend. But at the moment, he's just throwing just about every name that's in the squad out there, mate. Why?
Well, I mean, for starters, looking at the team, this is the most confusing thing about this for the Warriors, is that apart from the halves combination, I mean, like Roger's still there at centre. Adam Pompey, who had the worst game I've ever seen him play in a Warriors jumper, and I watched them a lot more than I wish, was appalling on the weekend. Dylan Walker, two blatant errors
he's
from
just
him.
hopeless out of form, poor Dylan, or he's injured.
What he was in for. He was playing pretty well during those. I think he was starting at lock in all three of those wins that they had. Defensively was appalling. Tamati Martin, you can't really drop him because Sean's now injured, but he was poor. They were all poor.
No,
See, this is what I don't get.
Webster said not one single player can hold his hand up and say I was.
And then why are you picking the same players?
Well, you can't drop the whole 17.
No, but you could drop about 6 of them. Surely. You could drop Pompey. Ikossi shouldn't be anywhere near a first-grade side, in my opinion.
And again, everything we've been told about for Noah Blake, I'd be dropping him. Again, no disrespect to the guy, but look, if you're causing that much internal problem, then you got to go.
We talked, Tony Kemp, to his credit, brought this up before we did, and we've talked about it a little bit here and there, and I've sort of said it a few times. I think that Andrew Webster, in my uneducated opinion compared to him, but I think Andrew Webster, seriously, his Achilles heel could be being far too loyal to the players that made things work from last year.
Done that. Many coaches.
Ian Foster, I thought, did that a little bit with the All Blacks. Kept on picking the same props who were appalling. I at what point do you start? They had just an embarrassing 4-game losing run where they should have beaten all 4 teams, or at least 3 of them, and then they got dicked by 60 points in the weekend. What has to happen? What's the final straw on the camel's back for him to actually totally gut out all 13 players, but change up some guys?
I think a horrendous loss to Brisbane this weekend.
Well, the thing is, they should be beating the Broncos. They've got guys backing up from Origin. They're missing their key playmaker. Reece Walsh might not even play, and they're at home to a Brisbane side during Origin. They should be beating Brisbane.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is what it's going to take. I think.
By the way, who've also lost 3 straight.
He has, in his own mind, what I'm reading is doesn't think he's hit rock bottom yet, even after shipping 66 points. A couple of quick ones to go. Hoskins Satutu, the Instagram post yesterday, if you didn't know about this, so he's put up, and it was covered by the mass media yesterday, a photo of himself with the medal draped around his neck after the Blues won on the weekend, and the post just said most hated. Now, we're all assuming, and I don't know why you would put that up unless it was otherwise, with some kind of dig at the All Blacks selectors or something by saying, hey, why do you hate on me? I should get a place in the All Blacks. Scott Robertson did actually make the point at the naming of the team that he said leaving him out was one of the hardest decisions. Ian Foster's told us last year that a couple of people that he had left out never returned calls. Look, I should imagine to be crushingly disappointing. But you aren't in the All Blacks until you get named in the All Blacks. And the problem these days is people read too much social media and too much of everything else, and they get on a hype train where, again, pundits are saying I should be in. Pundits don't pick the bloody team. That guy does. And what you've got to do if you're a player is somehow you've got to get to him or get into his headspace and say, dude, if I was actually a guy wanting to get back in the All Blacks or in the All Blacks, I'd be in touch with the selectors and I'd be going, I just want to know, are you watching me? Is there anything that I need to do? What do you want to see from me? How do you want me to be playing? What do I need to do to my game? Is there anything that you can tell me? How can I improve? I would be on to them every week. Yeah. Letting them so they know who you are, and then you are forcing them to watch you.
I would be on to them when I miss out. I'd be on to them at the start of the Super Rugby season.
There you go.
I want to get into the All Blacks. Let me keep an eye on my game. Let me know what you think I need to improve.
The thing with Hoskins is that, and this is what a young person does, or our old people do. I mean, good God. I mean, just all of us lose our brains at various times. I mean, there's bigger fish to fry here. You've got an All Blacks squad still to be named for the Rugby Championship. And
the interview tour.
Guys could be injured. And the end-of-year tour. So just because you miss out on the England-Fiji bit doesn't mean that you're actually out.
There was 2 blokes who were picked for the Ireland series 2 years ago. And Peter Gus Solkula and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Peter Gus never played for the All Blacks again, and Roger went on the interview tour, but...
Oh, well, that was a marketing exercise.
Yeah, famously failed at rugby. So this squad doesn't matter.
Brad Walter, NRL.com joins us. It's Origin tonight, state against state, mate against mate. Well, it used to be blokes a crate, but here in New Zealand we don't do that. So non-binary a crate, and everyone else who identifies as however they want to, please bring a plate. Welcome back, Brad.
Yeah, how are you, Marty? It's Origin Eve.
You're in Melbourne, my
Origin
friend.
Day,
So you're preparing for game number 2. As New South Wales Blues fans, you and me, a lonely place to be at times during Origin. All right, convince me that this can be a win tonight.
Okay, well, first of all, I think New South Wales have got a much better team than they had in game 1. They've basically got the team that that Michael Maguire would have picked in game 1 if those players had been available, i.e. Mitchell Moses, Cameron Murray, in particular Dylan Edwards, who was in the team and was ruled out through injury, and Connor Watson, who adds utility value on the bench. Plus Latrell Mitchell he's come back to like his absolute best form, which he wasn't in, say, a month or so ago, but he certainly is now. So I think it's a much better New South Wales team. And then on the other side, on the flip side, it just doesn't feel like that good a Queensland team, if I'm being honest, or it doesn't feel like as good a team. Obviously, Reece Walsh will play. He only got 8 minutes. He only was unfortunately able to play for 8 minutes before suffering that concussion in game 1. So that will obviously, he's an X factor for Queensland, and that he's a player they missed. But on the other side of that, New South Wales, because of the send-off of Joseph Suwali, went down to 12 players and played for 72 minutes with 12 players. They're going to have 13 players on the field tonight. I think that'll make a huge difference. They pushed Queensland for much of that game despite only having 12 players, so it took them a while to adjust, maybe 15 or 20 minutes to adjust to being a player short. And then probably for 40 or 50 minutes, they were well and truly in the game and played very, very well and were the better team, I dare to say, for that period. And then fatigue set in and they conceded a couple of late tries. The scoreline blew out 38-10, but if you are watching that game, I thought there was a lot for New South Wales to take out, and I think from the Queensland point of view, they'll need to improve a lot to beat a 13-man New South Wales team.
Oh, a lot to unpack in there. All right, let's just start with you. You know, you seem so confident that it's 13 on 13. What has there been some kind of directive towards the referees, the bunk, or whoever that says, listen, the last thing we want or need is for it to be 13 on 12 again?
Look, there's only ever been 6 players sent off in the history of State of Origin since 1980. 2 of those were actually Reece Walsh and Jerome Luai in game 3 last year. Which I don't think really counted. It was, headbutting allegedly, but it was just a couple of blokes carrying on a bit too much. So the Joseph Suwali send-off was like, it stunned people. It was totally unexpected, and you just wouldn't, you wouldn't think it would happen again. I'd be shocked if it did happen again. That was a badly, mistimed tackle. You'd like to hope that there won't be another tackle like that. I expect them to put a lot of pressure on. It's going to be quite intriguing, to be honest, because Reece Walsh hasn't played since then, and there's no doubt he's got a target on his back. Not a target on his head, but he's got a target. He's a playmaker. He's an X factor for Queensland, and New South Wales will be trying to get at him, trying to limit his game time, limit his time with the ball in terms of kicking, passing, whatever he does. So there's no doubt Liam Martin's going to be coming in at him, as he did early in that game, the first game. And so I think that's going to be intriguing to see. How does Reece Walsh respond? Like I said, he hasn't played since then. There's no doubt that the pressure's going to be there. But also the New South Wales defenders are going to have to be more cautious. They're going to have to make sure they time their tackles, better. So maybe they won't put as much pressure on him. I don't know. I think that's going to be one of the most intriguing things there. But look, Stephen Crichton is going to defend on that side of the field as well, and that's an area that New South Wales got wrong in game 1 after the send off. It took them like 15 or 20 minutes to move Stephen Crichton out to defend on that right centre. He was at left centre, and Queensland would cut them to pieces there for the first 25 minutes of the game. So I think there's some of the more intriguing aspects. But the other side of it too is, Latrell Mitchell, he just offers strike power, X factor. Queensland can't, they're going to be focused on him, just like New South Wales are focused on Reece Walsh. And that's going to, and whether Latrell does anything, that's going to sort of allow the playmakers, Jerome Luai and Mitchell Moses, a little bit more time as well. So, yeah, I just think, I think it's a much better New South Wales team. I expect that they'll have 13 players on the field for the full 80 minutes this time. And I just think, and they're going to be desperate. They have to win, And the history of State of Origin usually suggests that the team that was beaten in the previous game wins the next game because they've just got that little bit more motivation. There's a lot more riding on it.
We need to talk.
Lachlan, Origin.
Need to talk.
3 quick reasons as to why New South Wales are going to win tonight, and I'll give you my 3.
All right, mine are stats heavy. All right, New South Wales have won 5 of 9 games so far in Melbourne and State of Origin. They have a 5-4 record. That's not too bad. All right.
Okay, take that.
The last time that Queensland won the series with a game to spare, so won both the first 2 games, was 2016. 7 series since. New South Wales in those 7 series have won at least one of the first 2 games.
Mm.
And a selection, that being of Mitchell Moses at halfback. Not saying I'm the biggest fan of his. I think he's better than Nico Hines. He's more established. You got more experience guiding you around the park at 7.
Next!
My 3 reasons as to why New South Wales will win. I will echo that one. Mitchell Moses, I think, is a really good selection at 7. I'll reserve judgment on the guy that he's playing alongside. Reason number 2, that it's 13 on 13. Well, I hope it's 13 on 13 because what we saw in the first game, you can't take anything from that game because 73 minutes Blues were down a player, and you're never going to win a State of Origin game when it's 12 against 13. And reason number 3, it's better. It's just better if New South Wales win tonight, isn't it? That's just simply it, because otherwise there's no bloody point watching game 3.
Next!
Give me 3 reasons then why Queensland will win tonight.
Queensland have won 5 of 7 Origin games with Billy Slater as coach, including 4 of the last 5. You don't like the sound of that, do you?
No.
The next 2, for me, Reece Walsh and Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow are the two best players on the park in terms of players who can break a game open out of nothing.
Is that reason 2 and 3 combined?
No, that's reason 2.
Reason 2?
Walsh and Tabuai-Fidow. Reason 3, plainly put, man for man, they have a better team.
Next!
My 3 reasons why Queensland will win tonight. I go along stats: 34 of 55, 14 of 18. They just take care of business. Reason 2, Jerome Luai. You might as well put a maroon jumper on the guy. And reason 3, hatred. Because as Brad said there, even in Melbourne, they hate New South Wales and they hate the Blues.
Next!
The BTE, the Brendan Telfer Experience. Telf joins us every Wednesday on the program, and that is courtesy of JK's World of Golf. Could we squeeze all the topics in? He gave me a big list. Do you want Harry Plummer? Satutu's Instagram. Barrett is captain over Artie. The All Black squad in general. Dickhead no oil protesters at the Travellers Championship. The Warriors, Afghanistan, the European result. I mean, so much sport. Was there enough time? Well, we've just got enough time in the podcast to have a snippet of what we talked about with Telf. Telf, welcome back. Let's start, of course, with the bee in your bonnet. That is Harry Plummer. What's all this about?
Well, I'm just intrigued at the way the rugby writers in Auckland and the odd television commentator as well from up here seemingly besotted with the wonders of Harry Plummer's football of late. And even my old mate Phil Gifford in the New Zealand Herald on Monday heaping huge praise on his performance for directing the Blues around the field. Now, Plummer's played 75 games for the Blues, and I admit that he's a better player this year than he's been in any of his previous years. But he's still got a few deficiencies in his game, which these rugby writers up here just seem to be conveniently overlooking. First of all, he's not an attacking first 5'8", and if you think back to the I suppose, regime of All Black 5'8" since we've turned professional, or over the last 25 years or so, you have to be a fleet-footed number 10 to get that jersey. If we think of Carlos Spencer or Dan Carter or Bowden Barrett or Richie Mo'unga and now, of course, Damien McKenzie. Unfortunately, Plummer doesn't have any leg speed at all. He's very much in the fashion of that old fashion a number 10, a kicking 5'8", and it suits the Blues game well this year, where they've relied heavily on getting the ball down into the opponent's 22, and God knows how many tedious tries they scored from pushovers, but that's a legitimate part of the game. And so Plummer fits that style rather than a fast attacking number 10. He doesn't make line breaks. The other issues I have with him, first of all, his goal kicking. Yes, he went 7 from 7 last week. I'm sure that's the only time in his 70-odd games for the Blues he's gone 7 from 7. And well done to him. It was a fantastic effort in difficult conditions and played a big part, of course, in that win by the Blues. But for much of the season, he has been going at less than 70%, which would be one of the poorest records of any of the regular goal kickers in Super Rugby. In fact, if Dan Carter... Speaking of Carter, if Dan Carter had finished a Super Rugby season with a conversion rate of 70%, he probably would have retired. And we only need to go back a couple of weeks ago to think of the inconsistency of Plummer. In the match against the Crusaders, which the Blues lost, if you remember, early on in that match, he had 2 shots at goal from handy to the post in the first half and missed both of them. In the end, I think it was the Crusaders who won by 2 points. The following week, in the match against the Chiefs, not the final, but the round-robin match, if you remember, the Blues needed to get a bonus point to be sure of getting top spot in the round-robin. As it turned out, they got a home semi-final by another means. But 78 minutes of the match gone, and the Blues had got that bonus point try. All they had to do was to hang on to the ball for the last minute and a half. For some inexplicable reason, when the ball came to Harry Plummer just inside the Blues half, he grubber-kicked the ball and it ran into touch 10 metres up the field. From that line-out, the Chiefs swept down to the Blues line, out along the back line, quick transfer of the ball, bang, try in the corner, and the Blues lose their bonus point. So, I mean, fair enough, heap praise on things that he does, but I think if you're going to be objective, you've got to look at all of his game. He doesn't have a big punt either. Invariably, when Christie is trying to exit, to use the fashionable term, from inside the Blues in goal area, Harry Plummer gets the ball to about the 22 and the opposition have the ball back. So he's far from the finished product. But this is an old thing. In the years gone by, you probably might be a bit too young to remember this, Martin, but when Auckland had that fantastic run with the Ranfurly Shield back in the 80s, Auckland rugby writers, and there was a morning newspaper here, an evening newspaper here in those days as well, the Auckland Star.
That's right, yeah.
And it was amazing the number of All Blacks that the Auckland rugby writers were able to talk their selectors around and get them to pick these players who they all favoured up here. And I'm seeing a bit of that here again. I don't see too much praise on Plummer from anywhere outside of this region. But anyway, I wish him well, and well done last week. He kicked well.
I just want you to put your Andrew Webster hat on and sell us the Warriors this week, mate. Sell us that.
No.
Come on.
I tell you what, Martin, speaking of the Warriors, I'm afraid when I think of the Warriors this week, I'm inclined to think of breakfast. What's one of the main ingredients at breakfast time? Toast.
Oh,
and I'm afraid.
Jesus, I tell you what, that's a nasty old dad joke, but I think it worked. Actually, I like it. Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad.
But I mean, as far as that, early season kind of goal of winning the grand final,
no, was it never realistic?
Miles away.
Yeah, look, was it ever realistic? Come on, they were 30 points worse than the Panthers in Brisbane last year. Some people thought they were.
Someone's got to win it.
Well, of course, and I think that's very even this year. From here on in, they've just got to make that 8 and give themselves a shot at playing a finals game. Here's
the breakdown for the 8. My theory is, and I've gone back through a number of years, and it's a rule of thumb I had when I worked at Radio Sport, you've got to win 50% of your minor premiership matches basically to make the top 8.
Yep.
So far, the Warriors have won 6 out of 15, and I think it's 24 matches, isn't it? 24 matches they have for the premiership.
Yep.
So they've got to win another, they've basically got to win another 6 matches of their remaining 9. So they've got to win 2/3 of the remaining matches they play to end the premiership. They're going at 40% at the moment. To get to 50% for those 24 matches, they've got to win, as I said, 2 out of every 3 matches. Now, the bugbear of this club since it started, and it's still present 30 years on in 2024, is a lack of consistency.
There you go.
And there's only been 2 coaches that I can think of who've been at the Warriors who have been able to achieve season-long consistencies where their records, between 50 and 60%. Cleary and Daniel Anderson.
Yep.
And, of course, they're the only 2, if my memory serves me correctly, that have taken the Warriors into a final. And I was looking at Cleary's record. When he was at the Warriors, his record was 50% over the 77 matches or something he had in the period that he was here, or won 77 and lost, I think, 77 over his stints here. But since he's gone to the Panthers, he's perfected that even more. He's had 241 matches with the Panthers, and they've won 63% of them.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
So he's winning 2 out of 3 every year, year after year.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do though is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.